Let those in the waiting room come in. Kelly, let me know when I can proceed. Kelly, are we good?
We might have lost Kelly, Dane.
She's
Sorry, no, I'm here. Yes, I
Okay.
started the movie. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. So prior to beginning, I'm gonna turn on my recorder. I'm gonna have a digital recorder to transcribe the minutes. Give me a second. Great. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you for joining. This is the first meeting of the Interagency Food Systems Working Group established by Act 239 this past legislative session. Before we get into the agenda, I'd like to introduce the Interagency Working Group members, and then we'll go around the room. And if you could give your name, a title, as well as the organization, or if you're an individual, so I can accurately capture that in the minutes. So Dane Wicker, Deputy Director, as the co-chair of this working group, the designee of DBA Director Tokioka. Chair Hurd?
Also co-chair Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity Chairperson, co-chair of the working group as per Act 239.
Great, thank you. Senator DeCoit? Maybe having connection problems. Okay, Representative Chun?
Hi, Chun, House Chair of the Agriculture and Food Systems Committee, House Designee.
Thank you. It's a little soft on your end, but I made it out. Before I go around, let me turn it over into the conference room. I believe we have one, maybe two attendees in person. Kelly, are you there to activate the mic?
Aloha, we're all here. Shall we introduce ourselves?
Yes, please.
Kelly Yamamoto with DBED, Deputy Director Secretary.
Aloha, Amanda Shaw, Director of Food Systems, Agriculture Stewardship, Hawaii.
Hi, I'm Taylor Mackenzie. I'm also with Agriculture Stewardship Hawaii.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. I'm going to call out names as I see them on my screen to make this efficient. So Cheryl Shigemasa. Oh, your microphone's not working, Cheryl. Okay, that's interesting. No, I'll come back to you. Dustin Lee.
Hi, yeah, I'm Dustin. I'm Representative Chun's office manager.
Thank you, Dustin. Buddy. Buddy, then you might have connection issues too by the icons on your. Okay. Anna, Ezzy. Okay. Joy Kono. Okay. Carly Wyman. Anna, going back to you, I saw your hand up. minute.
For what
Dexter,
it's
you
worth,
on?
Dane, everybody has that same icon on their name. I don't know
Yeah,
if there's, yeah.
Okay. It should be interesting.
Oh, hi. Sorry. So to prevent any kind of
Oh,
Zoom bombing, I had to only give the presenters the mic. All others were muted.
okay. Is there a way that if they raise their hand, they can speak?
There wasn't an option
Okay.
unless you want me to change everyone to presenters, but
You know what? Okay, so because it's virtual, we have processes in place should there be a hack or an inappropriate bomb. What Kelly did is put in a process per the state. I'm gonna ask Kelly if you can, because this is a working group and this is a public meeting, if we can activate that all presenters, because these are all in, most of them that I recognize so far are industry folk. I'd like for them to participate in the conversation. Is it okay if we do that, please?
yes, I'm gonna go back to my desk and unmute everyone.
Okay. Okay, so in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll just highlight and go over what the act asks us to do. And then we'll go around, then we'll go back around and we can understand who's here and where they're representing. So the purpose of Act 239 is to coordinate and oversee the Interagency Food Systems Working Group. And we're tasked to develop a process to implement the interagency food systems plans as well as actions we come up with. So establishing the Interagency Food Systems Working Group is the chairperson of the Board of Agriculture, which is Chair Hurd, the director of DBED or their designee. So I'll be representing the director through the Interagency Food Working Group process. One House member as selected by the Speaker, and we have Representative Corey Chun, and one Senate member selected by Senate President, and that's Senator DeCoite. Sorry, Senator, I know you were calling me. Kelly's gonna fix this issue right now. Additional members with relevant expertise participating. As this is a public meeting, we are opening up for testimony from all public so we can learn and understand what will take to put this interagency food systems process together. The duties. We have to develop a governance, decision-making, and operating protocols, coordinate with county and community-led organizations on food systems planning, identify resources to support interagency coordination and implementation, develop internal and external communication processes, create time-bound implementation plans and establish metrics for progress, and use policy impact analysis tools to evaluate proposed actions. The deliverable will be an annual report to the legislature 20 days before the start of each regular session, covering our activities, recommendations, and any proposed legislation. So that date would be December 31st of this year, being that January 1st is a holiday. There was an appropriation of $100,000 for this fiscal year for operating costs of the coordination team and the working group, and funds are to be expended by DBED. Great. So Kelly, I think we're good. Let's try this again. Cheryl, are you able to turn on your camera and introduce yourself? Okay, I'm sorry, we're still unable to hear you. I'm gonna jump to Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Ezzi with the County of Hawaii Department of Research and Development, Ag and Food Systems.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Senator DeCoite.
Hi, Senator DeCoite, Chair of Economic Development and Tourism. Happy to be here.
Great, okay. Alexis Chapman.
Good afternoon. I'm Alexis Chapman, Director of Operations for the Hawaii Food Industry Association.
Thank you. Hesitant to call on the rest because I still see those icons. Janet Ashman.
Hi, thank you. Janet Ashman, Hawaii Farm Bureau Environmental Stewardship.
Thank you. Buddy Nichols.
Buddy Nichols, State Executive Director for USDA Farm Service Agency.
Thank you. Dexter,
Ishida, Department of Transportation, Food Security and Biosecurity Program Manager.
Joy Kono,
Hi, everybody. Joy Kono. I'm with the Regional Kitchen as the planner for the Department of Education. Thanks.
thank you. Alice Liu,
Aloha, Alice Liu from Hawaii Public Health Institute, Food Systems Program Manager. Mahalo.
Dean Parwinder, okay. Mark Liddell, okay, skipping over. Thomas Heaton,
Hi, Thomas Heaton, reporter at Civil Beat.
thank you, Thomas. Kimo Hardy,
Aloha, I'm Kima Hardy. I'm a community food producer and urban agroecologist with my company Earth Innovation.
thank you. Lauren Nelson,
Aloha, I'm Food Access Coordinator with the Maui County Department of Agriculture. Happy to be here.
thank you. Thank you, Hawaii Island and Maui, for joining us. Hunter Hevlin,
Hi, everyone. Hunter Hevelin, Food System Planner with Super Assistance and the Advocacy Director with Hawaii Farmers Union.
thank you. Clyde Manzano,
Hi, everyone. My name is Clyde Manzano. I currently work as a program coordinator for Hawaii Food Plus Policy.
thank you. Carly Wyman, Brian Miyamoto,
Aloha, Brian Miyamoto, Executive Director of the Hawaii Farm Bureau.
thank you. And I do see, I think Mark Liddell logged off and logged back on. Mark,
Hi, Mark Liddell, Hawaii Public Radio. Sorry, I was messing with my mic.
no problem. If I missed anybody, please turn on your mic and introduce yourself. Great. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. This is a different process other if you participated in the SR 111 working group. This was passed through a bill. We do have to follow the chapter 90, I think it's chapter 92 sunshine. So these will be public meetings as we work towards that report. So there is an agenda. We'll move on to the approval of minutes, which none, this is our first meeting. And then moving on to action items. So I'd like to open up the discussion first and foremost. This is an informational dump, so to speak. So let's understand what the prior accomplishments have been and activities to date. One of the key items I'd like to see from DBED's standpoint is that we've had a lot of discussions on interagency food systems, both at the economic level as well as the delivery model. And part of that report would be key to know what are the next steps towards implementation. There was a very good discussion yesterday in the Senate with the Judiciary Committee and the Committee on Agriculture and what we've learned of the federal impacts, both off of the decrease in federal funding as well as the tariffs. I'd like to take that as well as efforts that are made in state in building out this ecosystem of what it would take both short and long term so we can work towards food security. Chair Hurd, would you like to add anything or to the discussion or thoughts on this?
No, but I agree that that's a good way to proceed. Yesterday's informational briefing, those of you that were participating or online, it was very sobering that with the federal policies and impacts, we are headed into a brand new area of food systems and planning. So I think it's a really good agenda to start with that, Deputy. And I'd like maybe to ask Brian Miyamoto, who put the panel together, to make a comment as well.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully, folks were able to watch yesterday's briefing, and if not, again, you can see it archived. As Chair said, sobering. Some real hard numbers, some facts, but also still uncertainty. And I think Amanda's report is something that everybody needs to look at. So not just the confirmed cuts and losses, but those that are still at risk. And I think her big number was $175 million. So again, thank you again for those that participated, and please take a look at it. And I think those documents are available, and it'll give you a better grasp on really what we're dealing with. And then that's added on to the recent government shutdown. So that's all I have to say. Again, some sobering numbers.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Senator Coit. If any idea or thoughts on what you'd like to see as a work product from this working group?
So of course, it's sombering to see, those numbers. But again, too, I think we gotta get more creative. I want to see the creativity behind trying to address some of the things that we've looked at, whether it be biosecurity, whether it be food production, which, we've had our challenges. But again, too, while I was on a site visit, I'm looking at what are we doing more to promote buy local. And I'll take this, for example, CRB. CRB has been a big thing for us, but when I start to look at some of the composting and what's available out there, and we're still importing, the idea was to get off some of these imports. I say we got to look at the inventory of what's being done here in Hawaii by local and that interagency and so forth, coming up with those numbers to kind of bring down this 175 million offsets. Yeah, we cannot keep looking at where we're getting money from. Look at what's right in front of our eyes. I'm really pressing on that because there are a lot of options for us in Hawaii. It's an inventory of what we need to assess and map out properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Chun.
Thanks. Yeah. Hopefully my mic is a little louder now.
Yep.
Okay. So I think what I'm really interested in is, a lot of these big issues that we have in agriculture crosses a lot of different sectors. And I think I want to make sure that, when we look at it, we're touching every single sector that has possible impact. Because a lot of times, there's folks working in different areas and want to make sure that we all come together and work on this issue and everyone's on the same page. Especially when it comes to, issues like food security.
Thank you, Representative. I just shared my screen, and as we move to the other attendees, we'd like to hear your manao on this too. So my thought for today's meeting is to gather ideas as an informational dump, kind of understand what's already been done, what resources are out there, as we move to our next meeting, where we can call for presentations, solutions, or other challenges that we may not have covered today, as we work towards what does this ecosystem look like, and what are those hard next steps, both short and long term. This includes things from infrastructure, facilities. It could be grants, it could be incentives. We have to understand, especially after yesterday and hearing some of the challenges, we do need some short-term solutions too. So with that, I'm just going to leave this up on the screen now. It's kind of just for conversational, and I'll come back to this. But I'm going to turn it over to all the other attendees. If you want to add anything, your thoughts, please raise your hand, and then I'll call on you as I see your hands come up.
Deputy, while we're waiting for the hands, several of the people on the call right now were at the Maui Nui Summit last Friday. And I would like one of the topics that we discuss in future meetings to be something that was brought up at that meeting, which was the moderator asked the question, his father is a kalo farmer, And his father said, "Why do farmers have to be activists?" And I thought that was a very chilling question. And why do they have to be activists? Was the question misplaced? But it would be a good topic for discussion when you're talking about food security, and especially with in light of the slide you have on right now. If we're going to achieve those goals, farmers and ranchers need resources. They don't need to be activists to accomplish the goals that we have. So that's just my comment while we're waiting for hands.
That's a good point. So when it comes to resources and farmers, if we can identify what those resources are, in a sense, have them provide their wish list. Not necessarily the state can address all that, but if you look at, let's say, a dozen farmers respond, maybe a third of them all provided similar resource requests, then we know there's something that needs to be further explored. And if it is a deciding tool or a resource, how do we cover that? Is it a state, whether administrative, legislative address? That would help. We hear things such as, like yesterday, they talked about the transportation chains, facilities such as cold storage, dry storage, and I do see a movement in getting the resources from the state. We do have lands, for example, with Agribusiness Development Corporation, that they're exploring to put cold storage facilities on. Other facilities such as processing, manufacturing. Then we can go down to programs. We're learning that Department of Education, through their School for Adults, they have your Build Your Farm, Build Your Biz, Build Your Bank, soft skills for farmers to use. Other items we learned, such as who can help build capacity for good agricultural practices, what agency out there can help request services or resources so that we can tap the non-government sector to provide those resources. Kahikina, see your hand up?
Hi, aloha.
Hi, aloha.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you folks have this meeting for one thing, because it's really rare to have the opportunity to speak to you folks as agriculture and food security is concerned, because there's many, many, many different sectors of our food industry that are insecure, and just the access to and also the preparation to know about these meetings. I had only known about this meeting 2 hours ago. So yeah, that's one of the main disconnects too, that I wanted to point out first off. Um, what I wanted to ask you folks is, I'm really interested in the dairy industry here locally, because historically we've had dairy independence all the way up until 1980s, early 1980s. And, there's been a lot of legal, I guess, obstruction to keep local dairies in operation. And thus you see a lot of large scale dairies coming in to try to create, house, dairies that are, having 1,000 cows on one farm. And I'm just wondering, what is the approaches, especially for local business owners who want to start up local small dairies here in Hawaii, and supporting a feasible economic outlook for, say, even just to hold a decent size income off of a dairy farm. And what kind of steps are you folks looking at as far as supporting local families in trying to make those economic dreams a reality from now? Because there's a lot of historical ways that legally it prevented local people from gaining access to land, or having equitable or fair prices on farm equipment and all that. And so yeah, I just want your input now, because now there's a lot of new technology that is available internationally. And with the tariffs and the US market not having good relations with our international, um, you know, potential business partners, it's also kind of hindering the opportunity for us here in Hawaii to have access with international markets and business with international markets. And that's something that I've kind of come across when trying to purchase. Um, uh, I wanted to purchase some items online, but for for a business, for a distribution business, but they wouldn't allow that because of the U.S. Relations right now. And I just wanted to ask you folks kind of a broad question on that regard, if that's too much. Sorry.
No. One thing before I turn it over to the uh, um the group for any comments or responses. Kelly, are we on the email address dbed.adc@hawaii.gov? I believe that's for any assistance as well as testimony. Um, I'm going to ask everyone who's on the call, because we don't have your emails, but probably send an email to that dbed.adc@hawaii.gov and just put in the subject next meeting. And then what we can do is put on an email list. And when we have the next meeting established, we can send that link out. Our process is we post it online 6 days out or earlier if we can, once we have the agenda. And it goes on the public meetings website. We don't have a distribution list where we call it. What we do is we do route it amongst some of the larger government entities or non-government entities to circulate. So I apologize that it was short notice on your end. It's on the public, it's on the government website, Falling Sunshine, and we'll figure out a way to get distribution for the remaining meetings. Any questions or comments to Kahikina's issues or challenges? I have some thoughts I'll share after.
Dane, can I say something about that?
Yes.
So because we were established by way of an act, what Kahikina missed maybe at the top of the call was Dane took the time, Deputy took the time to read off the purpose of the group, but your questions are spot on. They fit within the realm of what we're doing here. So, but your question is kind of scattered for me. And what I'd like to suggest is that maybe Kahikina, you submit to this group through the email what your specific question is. What is your top thing? If it's dairy, maybe the format moving forward is Senator DeCoit earlier brought up a very, very important topic to a food system, and that's composting. So maybe we do composting. Next meeting, we're going to talk about this. Could be composting, could be dairy, but specifically some topics. And then we'll spend maybe 1 hour on it, and then we'll move the second hour into another thing. But we need a little bit more structure to your question. I mean, it had to do with tariffs and availability and dairy. And one thing about the dairies is it cannot be in a urban setting. We all know what happened to the Ocala dairy, where the community was so upset with the smells and so we need more topics, Kaikin, if you don't mind me asking you to submit to the website a more specific distilled version of your question, and we'll be happy to take it up topic by topic. Let's focus on dairy, let's focus on compost. And that way maybe we can get in depth rather than be more scattered in our meetings. What do you think, the co-chair?
That's helpful. One thing I'll note, ADC will be bringing on a commodity coordinator. We just got that position established. It was provided to us by the legislature this year. So thank you to our senator and sheriff for supporting us in that. But to co-chair's point, one task is we have to start knowing what commodities and livestock we want in the state, we need in the state, and what that scale is. Because one of the driving, as you see on the screen, why this interagency coordination meeting matters is what is the process to double local food production? And so I don't know if that's a monetary amount on purchasing or if we're going to go from 90% down to 60% or 40% as we decrease our imports and scale up what we can produce here. When it comes to dairy, we need data, or need to go get the data. What is the volume that the state consumes now, and with population growth, what that consumption will be? How much needs to be produced? What is the land requirement for that? And then what are the facilities to provide that? So those are really good questions. I think I see consistent, it comes down consistent to land use. Do we have the inventory? If not, the state does have the agencies that can acquire land, and it's been part of the mission specifically to ADC as they were established in 1994 to acquire the assets and land through the downsizing of our larger plantations to prevent these infrastructures from being dilapidated, as well as the irrigation systems, and preventing the land going fallow. So the state is playing catch up now to acquiring these assets. And we have to balance those resources with all other needs and services such as healthcare, human services, education. But food security is vital, and I see that interest and the attention more now than ever with our policymakers as well as the admin. And this is an opportune time to put that in there. Don't be ashamed to ask. It's up to your state departments to come up with that plan and present it to our policymakers for consideration. It all ties in, with the Act 151, the purchasing of 30% by 2030 for DOE, as well as the other state institutions, such as your state hospitals, your state jails, your state prisons. Any other thoughts to Kaikina's points? But yes, please summarize and send it to the email. That's a great way for us to gather and collect it and to put it together for the next meeting.
I'd like to add, Dane, that we cannot attack this 85 to 90% in aggregate. We should start with a commodity. Like, we know we do 100% of our pineapples. We do 100% of our, right now it's close to 100% of our melon. So let's choose a commodity that we can measure progress. Like citrus, we're doing real big progress on citrus now. We import X number of our citrus, and let's move towards getting that closer to 60%. Let's go by commodity. I think that way we can show movement. We import, for instance, 99% of our rice. I don't know that we'll ever get better than that because of the demands of farming, but let's choose something we can work on. Let's choose a commodity. Maybe it is dairy, but let's work on this 85 to 90% on a commodity basis that we can measure.
I agree with that approach. And then we can expand the template. Any other points? Similar approach to Kaikina. If actually would like to ask Amanda. She was very involved in the coordinating and preparation of the product that came out of SR 111. What were some of the findings coming out of the report? Maybe some of the next steps, some of the investments or resources both industry and state counties need to consider?
Yeah, thank you, co-chair. Just, really, really helpful to hear some of the background and to think about this whole panorama. I was also thinking about the counties and how exciting the work they're doing on implementation is. They're really looking at the food system, from production all the way through consumption. So just really excited to have them on the call. I think if we're looking back at SR 111, and we can share that report as well in the link for folks to check out if they haven't seen it. We were really looking at that time period of 2025, 2026, and trying to understand where departments are already doing a good job of coordinating across agencies. And so what comes to mind that, was in that report was really around the institutional purchasing push and the regional kitchen, that there was strong collaboration there. That there was, in relation to biosecurity, because, for producing all this food, we hear it from producers, especially places like Kauai, they're producing amazing food, but they're just getting decimated by the invasive species. So just how key that piece is. So I think there was 5 or 6 priorities, so we can share that out. really, looking at the governance, looking at data and information, biosecurity and invasive species management, land, water, and infrastructure, the bedrock to be able to scale up this production, and then the institutional purchasing, innovation, value-added infrastructure that I think you folks spoke about. But that's really one of the huge missing pieces. It's such an amazing space for the state to play a role, is that connective infrastructure. So I think there's a number of ways we can progress what's happened and what folks have been doing since we were part of that group, and looked at that together, as well as looking at resources in light of our federal funding climate. However, I was heartened, I think others were as well, by how much commitment and shared terrain there is amongst the leadership in the legislature and in the community to really, work together to address some of the fault, the places where we will have cuts. So it seems, as you were saying, that there's a good momentum there. So that would be on my mind is, first and foremost, what are we facing that's, really going to shift rapidly as we're trying to scale up this system. We know that food insecurity in particular is rising dramatically as we speak. So how does that come into the picture here? How are farmer livelihoods going to shift as they're less able to access potentially some of the USDA dollars? So we want to keep that in mind. It sounds like from what we heard from the panel and other colleagues yesterday, but at the same time, continue progressing the interagency work that's already been started.
Thank you, Amanda. We're still on item A, review accomplishment and activities to date. So I just pulled together, with some of the articles that have been in the media recently, extracted some of the points in there. So this came out of not only the informational briefing yesterday, but what I would like to gather in between the end of this meeting up until the next meeting is all the different issues, like Kalakina mentioned, like Amanda noted, like Chair Hurd noted, so we can gather what those issues, those challenges are, and then I'll put it together in a slide deck, and then we can highlight it at the next meeting. It kind of gives us this inventory, this data check. Okay, now that and I wouldn't just identify the challenges. You folks know where we have successes. So for example, take Maui, for instance. My understanding is they are already at the 30% of local purchasing, and they do that through aggregation. So when we look at our farmers across the state, we have a lot of small to mid-sized farmers. Those farmers that we would refer to as large farmers, they on a scale compared to the US are actually small farmers. They're helping to support not only the infrastructure, the inputs for the small farms, but if we can understand where we have successes at, we can help, it'll help identify what the ecosystem for the state should look like, and then what the pukas or drop-offs are for each county. Where should we make investments? Because we're understanding that the inputs and outputs are different for every county. For Oahu, we have aggregation facilities, but either the gaps on the front end or the distribution on the back end may not necessarily be as coordinated, especially when we're going to be looking at value-added product development centers, the regional kitchens. How do we get some of that supply to the food bank? The strategy to supplement outside products at the food bank with locally made products, things like that. Because if it's for a DBED, we see a circular economy. It'll cost more to get there, but in the long term, rather than leaking those dollars out, how do we keep those dollars in? I do see a radical idea considering what we're facing with SNAP. I think we need to understand how SNAP dollars are used, what they're going to, and as we build out these infrastructure and facilities, are those products or meals that we can create here in the next 5 years to supply direct to the SNAP users rather than having to rely on SNAP funding. And then we hit a situation like this and we're in panic. So I think there are a lot of lessons out there we can point to now and in the last 5 years on how do we address that? Because then we're really moving towards resiliency and food security.
That's right up what Senator DeCoite asked for is innovation, Co-Chair Dane. And definitely that's innovative, is to take the SNAP dollars and centralize it in the hands of let's say ADC, and then you would then have a kind of like a place where the SNAP recipients can go and pick up whatever is abundant, not necessarily what. It's not like a supermarket, but it would be like whatever is abundant available in the farmer's production that day, whatever's seasonal, they can go there. So that's innovative. It's like providing food, but not in that supermarket fashion, but more in a distribution fashion, something that's available. That would be innovative. It would still be food, but it would be a different distribution.
Ultimately, agree. Ultimately, it would be awesome to walk into the food bank and see Hawaii's value-added products on their shelves. Real meals ready to eat that were made from scratch using local produce, potentially coming out of the regional kitchen, having them prepare the meals for the food bank. And with high pressure processing, it'll allow for that to expand the shelf life and store it there. Then you're really creating that interagency food ecosystem of keeping those dollars here rather than the dollars going to your Costco and then going out for something like a Vienna sausage or Spam, which is the most affordable and accessible at this point in time. We can truly get there. I'm seeing efforts made. Sorry, go on, co-chair.
No. It's something you've been saying for quite some time, Dane, and it's certainly getting traction. Your question the other day, how much of the farmer production is actually off grade? We don't know. We should assess, right? That's a question you've been asking for some time, and make that off grade products available at a central location. And people can pick it up.
So good point. Now I'll put up there. Our Food and Product Innovation Network Manager, Anela Akana, as well as the commodity coordinator that will be coming on board in November. One of their early on tasks is going to figure out a way to inventory and capture farmer off-grades so that we can advertise it at the value-added product development centers on Oahu as well as on Maui. By providing those who go through the door, hey, here are some off-grades. If you have an idea, go purchase it or we can provide it. But it's starting to collect that and figuring out who the end users are. But that's a very good point. And that was another key reason why we're asking for capacity within ADC to start capturing data where we saw pukas were left. All right. Any other items to talk about under accomplishments or activities to date? Okay. I'm going to move on to item B. So this is, again, just informational gathering. We won't really be doing any assignments today because we won't know what the areas we'll be working on. We'll definitely get that out at the next meeting. And then we can see who's working on it or who can help work on and deliver those parts of the plan or those parts of the report.
Dean, Deputy, I'd like to say that on item B, even though we're not assigning today, I'd like to suggest that we can bring in the commodity groups and say for instance, to your point, Hawaii Tropical Fruit Growers, Hawaii Master Food Preservers, they're meeting next week, Thursday and Friday. Maybe we can assign them. How much of your members' production is culls? Give us ask them to help us with the collection of the data. And so it wouldn't be to assign them, but it would be to ask for their input.
Could they provide that via testimony for the next meeting? Because then we can.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of my presentation when I speak to them next week.
Yeah. So to help prepare the discussion, as part of the discussion for the next meeting, I had some thoughts. And it would be great if they can submit it early through testimony, so we have it documented, we can get an early start in it, we can have it up for everybody, or they can present it during the discussion. It is a public meeting, so we'll ask for any public speakers. The key there, again, identify gaps, the inconsistencies, any missing data that would help understand what this ecosystem looks like. That'll help prepare the first draft of the report. Working against the clock here, December 31st. By that third meeting, we would like to have a draft report available for review and feedback. That'll include us consolidating the comments from this meeting and the next meeting, getting consensus on what the report and the direction, and a clear list of where we need to head.
So when Brian Miyamoto and Hunter are both on the call, they can reach out to their membership, Farm Bureau and HFUU, and tell them, hey, send us how much of your production is culls. If they can identify the crop and the percentage, that's really good information for our next meeting.
Great.
Dane,
Yes, Senator.
in this case, doesn't the Department of Ag have some of the crops, the data already on some of the crops?
They did do some commodity cropping along with CTAR, and that was a good start for DBED's end to utilize their information. But as Chair had mentioned, we have a lot of other commodities that are on the list that need to go through the same exercise. And with the commodity coordinator, they'll be able to start helping us build that
Hey,
capacity.
Sabrina, my meeting is still going on.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Senator. Okay. Any other questions or comments or thoughts about how we can prepare for the next meeting regarding data, informational gathering?
Deputy?
Yes, Brian?
This is in response to Senator DeCoit. Senator DeCoit, I think what you're referencing is some of the data that the DOA, the DAP, collects on crops. It's harvested but not sold. So although you may, some of that may be off-grade culls, some of it may be due to other factors, but I think they can probably glean out of that much of it is maybe off-grades or culls. It may be a shipping issue or whatever the case, but I think their division, their EDD, can probably elaborate a little bit better on those metrics and those numbers. But yeah, some of the crops like bananas, avocados, I think they do reports on, so that's a good start, Deputy.
Thank you.
Yeah, in that case, I mean, normally it's a percentage, yeah. So if the data is already there, you'd capture the percentage. The other thing I think we gotta add look out for is I'd like to see the cattle, the beef industry as well. Where we at with that, because that's being outsourced heavily. Thank you.
The cattlemen's meet next month, the 13-14. Senator, if you would want to maybe submit a question, because I'm not sure I understand the question, but when you say outsource, you mean imported? Or you mean the calf operation?
So basically, I mean exported. So in other words, what is being exported? Would it be wean outs or those that have met their life expectancy? And then what's the kill in the slaughterhouses statewide?
Yeah. This is in the livestock industry, whether it's the beef or the small animal. Just some information we've gathered right now across the state. There is a lack of processing facilities, both on the beef side as well as the small animal. Also, the inputs are not there. We don't have the scale yet for some of the small animal industries because the lack of processing facilities. So there's that chicken and egg. I'd like to scale up, but I have nowhere to process. And as well as our private processors, I'm limited. I don't have enough input. There's also the labor shortage. So with the workforce development side, I'm aware that the Hilo has a butchery program, but yet how do we get those students possibly interning, and how do we expand the Hele Imua program maybe to help cover the costs so then our small processors can stabilize their income until they're able to actually pay for that labor to come on. So those are some of the challenges too. There's a labor shortage, but they don't have the income yet to bring on those skilled workers because they don't have enough throughputs yet. Some of the challenges on the throughput side has been the lack of pasture lands. I did start fishing out to both DLNR and DHHL for potential pastoral lands. ADC has to consider acquiring pasture lands across the state that we can make available for our ranchers and livestock, and then making those investments into the processing facilities. Some processing facilities are only processing for their own capacity, which limits the full ecosystem for some of the other producers where they go cow-calf. unable to go to feed process because they don't have either the feed facilities, which the state needs to figure out how we consider this criminal feed. The export includes ranchers shipping their calves out of state, fattening and bringing them back. So we see a lot of the similar challenges. It's how do you provide both the resource if it's land and or processing? That's just some of the information we've gathered in the last few months.
So Dane, basically that the ask is, again, we know exactly where those slaughterhouses are, is to have that conversation. Again, too, this is pending a lot of the transfer of those lands of Act 90 back to DOA. We can't, that's why I was saying in the beginning, we need to know what is the inventory. We would have had those numbers prior to past two administrations not keeping the data accurately, at least the bulk of that data on onloads and offloads. I think this is where we have fallen short of knowing exactly what the inventory of what production exists today versus doubling, tripling food production. But you could get those numbers if you go directly to the Cattlemen's Association to find that out, as well as the few slaughterhouses that we do have. Same thing what was brought up earlier about when we talked about dairy. But I think this is critical because you also got to factor in of what we've seen and the data that has been collected of those lands that even though they are pastoral lands, they are unusable lands due to invasive species. And you got to factor in those things as well to figure out how to use scale up and whether or not the infrastructure being built accommodates the scale up. Because what you're seeing is you're seeing cattle now being shipped, not just by barges, they're being shipped out by planes. That'll be a huge impact on how this pans out, where we go with the interagency plan.
Thank you, Senator.
I got a couple suggestions, Deputy.
Hi, Hunter. Yes.
So in terms of some data points, with my planner hat on, last year we with DOA and Hawaii County had compiled some producer needs assessments as well as a compilation of some of the previous producer assessments that had happened in recent years. So that's one data point. There's I believe still operating dashboard tool to review that survey data, and I could probably get the other tool that was built for, actually it's like a chat bot with a bunch of previous assessments that were done. So those are a couple key data points. I think particularly because the bill is articulating the importance of working with existing county and community efforts. Just to lift up a couple recent ones that I've been involved with on the county side, it seems like there's sort of a trend of action focused on working with the visitor industry to increase purchasing from local sources. So Oahu's Good Food Program and Hawaii County working with food hubs, producers, and resorts on the Kona Coast have been projects underway, and some similar discussions at least kind of begun with some folks in Maui County as well. So that's one potential avenue. And then I'll maybe close it with a question. I felt like with the SR 111, there was really the scope was, or the value that I saw in that was by bringing together a lot of the departments to think through how we address challenges together. And by the writing of 1186 or 239 rather, it seems like it's more focused on county efforts and community efforts and maybe less roping in of a variety of state departments. Am I reading that of this particular meeting correctly, or just thinking through from a process perspective? Because for me,
I didn't have that lens on when I looked at the two. I didn't have that lens on when I looked at the two pieces of legislation, but I will say it's the industry and the community that would know where the challenges are and what those drop-off points are. So having them in the discussion is critical. super critical. Because if we're looking at this ecosystem, you have, like, I would take off, like, if this was just solely me working on a plan, I would figure, okay, who do I go to get all of the challenges? And that's what we're doing right here, leading up to the next meeting. Everyone's just doing this informational dump. Then as we identify those challenges, including like some of the stuff that was mentioned yesterday, okay, you put it down in the system, you lay it out working backwards. We want to get to doubling food production. We want to achieve these mandates. How are we going to get there? What does that look like? What is needed to get there? And then come in maybe at the third meeting and say, okay, now who would do this? Regardless of who's already doing it, who would do this? And I would just put down, okay, you probably have a food hub who do that, or that should be the state's kuleana, or that should be the Farm Bureau's kuleana. Then you can go back and you can say, oh, they're already doing it. Continue on. Or is this something you guys could consider? We penciled you in, but then we can figure out that cadence and then deliver. Okay, now that we've saw that short term, long term, what are those resources that are needed? Is it going to be a facility, an acquisition, positions, a grant, an incentive? That's what I hope to flesh out and bake into this part of this report that we distribute by the end of this year. Real tangible items that help complete both the short and long term. Can't get that just within state departments.
And I second that because Hunter, both of them have space. The higher level state solution definitely is to your point, the state departments have a role, interagency. But the solution level, it's usually at the county level. The counties have certain specific needs that are not solvable at a state level. I'll give you an example. Composting, brought up earlier. Every county has their own compost rules. Department of Health is involved in the rules for the composting, and yet it gets complicated. So the state can make a rule, but it has to be implemented at the county level. You can talk about workforce development. State has a mandate, but the counties have to do the solutions because the availability of resources is generally limited at each county level, greater or lesser. Talk about CALO. Every county has a different capability in CALO. You can talk about every commodity, cattle, every county. So I don't want to belabor the point, but they both have space. The interagency working group started at the state level. One of the conclusions was no matter what we decided at the 111 level was going to be implemented at the county level. So we needed both. I hope you can agree with that.
Yeah. It was more just highlighting the evolution than having a bone to pick by any stretch. I will happily share after our Farmers Union convention coming up later this month. We'll have some of our priorities, and I'll be happy to share that with the group, or can share that with you as well. And apologize, I have to hop off, but really appreciate seeing this work move forward, and mahalo for including us.
Mahalo, Hunter. Any other thoughts for action item 3B? Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to 3C. So to keep this moving and to keep this
Anna has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anna?
Thank you. And I wanted to add that the County of Hawaii, our department is working on a 5-year agri-food system plan. And just that our plan development lines up well. We're hoping to have much of the draft done by December and a full draft by the end of January. So opportunity for coordination efforts there with the county.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. Seeing other hands up. Moving on to 3C. So this meeting again was kind of just revisit what has been done, kind of lay out the foundation, lay out a direction for the subsequent meetings as we get into the nitty-gritty of the details and discussion of what will help shape this report. So as far as timeline, I put together a proposal about a total of 5 meetings leading up to the January 1st, December 31st deadline. This is just all fluid. It was just kind of the major bucket items to cover at each meeting. And Kelly, correct me if the dates are wrong, but I believe our next meeting will be on November 4th. We've allotted 2 hours windows for each of the meeting. At that meeting, it's the call from now until then and submit it via testimony. Any of the gaps, challenges, issues across the whole agriculture sector, commodities, livestock, as well as those successes, we definitely want to be able to examine what's working and how do we replicate that across the counties. If your county is finding success in a specific value chain, whether it's a facility, it's a program, a food hub, an aggregation facility. Brian?
Yes, Chair. The Farm Bureau Convention is going to be on November 4th, and I do believe some that are on the this call will also be participating at the convention. So if there's a chance, again, we don't want to have to change because of the Farm Bureau, but it's not just us. There's others that are on this call that will be at the convention. So
we are going to find another date. We are going to find another date. I apologize. Because there are there's a site visit that end of that first week in November that I'll need to be attending, and I think some of the other members on this. It's a legislative meeting, so this date, I apologize. Kelly is looking at changing the date, so I apologize.
Okay, I am available on November 27th. That is a Thursday.
It's also Thanksgiving, is that right?
I'm surprised. Okay, so we'll be adjusted, but we're looking at about two meetings in November, and then 2 meetings in December. And this allows flexibility for us to shift a little bit, which we're already starting to do. But from now until then, please feel free to reach out to myself and Co-Chair Hurd with any questions. Revisit the agenda, utilize the address, the dbed.adc address. It's good if you guys could submit your materials as testimony through that so we can document it. We can include it in our files. If you can get it to us ahead of time, we can get it up into a presentation deck ahead of the next meeting, and we can cover that in the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Any closing thoughts from anybody? Great. Again, thank you guys for your time. I really, really am looking forward to taking all the work that's been done with all the reports, all the studies, and really trying to achieve these mandates and then giving direction to either the state, what we can do legislatively as a work product coming out of this report. There's some really, really good attendees on here, so thank you all.
Dane, I thought I
Yes.
saw a hand up. Was there a hand up?
Did I see it? I'm looking in the wrong area.
No?
I'm just
Okay.
curious to see, will a budget breakdown of this first $100,000 allocation will look like? Will that support this working group, or will that be going to each county?
We don't know what our costs are going to be yet, or what we're going to allocate those funds for. That'll be a determination as we move through this process, and then what
Okay.
we can use to fund. Yeah. No budget yet. No items. No deliverables on what we're using our funds for yet.
We're open to suggestions.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you all. So if you can, email through that dbed.adc website so we can put together a contact list so we can keep the distribution out when we have our next meeting, as well as any of those agenda materials. And also on the flip side, submit any responses, material items for us to consider and incorporate into the discussions, as well as possibly the report. Thank you all.
Thank
Have a
you
nice
very
weekend.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Who? Sorry, what?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.